Welcome to the weekly roadmap call. One more time, my name is Maria Elena James, and I am your moderator. I'm excited to have you all here on the newest industry call and community. Today is June 28th. Once again, I'm your call moderator. Let's go over some quick topics for today. So we are going to go over a quick tour and approach of the community, weekly roadmap community. And we do have a slide where we'll show you a little bit more about the calendar. We have our market update today. And then, of course, we have our guest speaker, Jeff Walton, who is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer at Ingenious. He's going to go over some great strategies, some Q&A with him and Brian. And then, of course, Brian also has sales strategies and tactics, right? At the end of the call, or throughout the call, excuse me, he will do live Q&A. So type those questions in the chat and or in the Q&A section. And then at the very end, he will stay with you for an extra 30 minutes if you have any questions for him. So without further ado, again, this man needs no introduction, but he has been the CEO and president of some of the top 10 mortgage companies in the nation. He is currently the CEO of Mortgage Advisory Partners and of the Weekly Roadmap. He is my mentor and my friend, and it's my pleasure to introduce your call leader, Brian Hale.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome, everybody. It's exciting to have everybody on board this morning. We've got coast-to-coast attendees here, so that's outstanding. We're excited to be here with you. Just a quick walkthrough of the Weekly Roadmap community. You know, this is a call that we have set up to try to provide both market insight, excellent speakers with ideas, and some sales tactics and approaches, and to create a community of originators coast to coast. As I always say, if people on this call or people in the industry are getting great coaching or a great weekly sales meeting from their company or their boss or their branch manager or their area manager, hallelujah, that's outstanding. But it's been my experience that people are not getting, across all originators, that kind of coaching and opportunity to be part of a community. Plus, if people are changing companies or doing those kinds of things, sometimes they leave some of that behind. This call and this community is really meant to be a one-stop spot each week that's portable. If you change, if you're available, if you can see it live, it'll be recorded. You can listen to it as a podcast to try to give you as current as you can updates as to what's happening in the market relative to interest rates and things and data that you should be following, as well as ideas on how to improve your production, improve you as a professional in the marketplace, self-improvement as well, and get that 1 hour juice on a Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific on an ongoing basis. So, the intent here is to give you access to some outstanding speakers. Today we have Jeff Walton, the CEO of Ingenious, previous CEO of Total. In addition to that, automatically will be enrolled in our weekly newsletter that comes out every Friday so that you get additional information going into the weekend, and additional curated information that we'll be sending out through the course of the week to go on from that basis. In addition to that, we're making this call free to everybody through the 1st of August so that people can get on and get a little taste of what we're doing in the community and the type of data that we're trying to provide to people. And then from that point forward, for many people, it'll be a subscription opportunity where you get a chance to get a free look and understand what we're doing here. Each week, once you're registered into the community, in terms of accessing this call every Friday, you're able to go up to the Weekly Roadmap link, go to the calendar section, and you'll be able to find the Zoom link to this call each week so that you don't have to worry about, was it sent to my email? Did it go into my spam or my junk folder or whatever the case may be? So once you're in the community, you have easy access not only to the call each week, but to the recorded sessions. Each deck that we produce each week, you'll be able to download those as well directly from the community site. I mentioned previously, we have an app up in both the Google and Apple App Store that you can download. You can get notifications, additional information. You can communicate with each other via the app. And so I encourage you to go up and download the app, load it onto your phone, and you have easy access to all of our materials. Let me get into the guts of the call here, if I can. Yeah, and just in terms of market update, we've had a busy week. This week, we saw new home sales come in at a reported 619,000 versus a 640,000 forecasted. That, while if you're in the home building business, that's a negative. If you're in the mortgage business, that actually gives us an opportunity to expect somewhat lower rates. I'll talk about that as we go through here in terms of this past week's data. On Thursday, June 22nd, we saw initial jobs claims come out at 233,000 versus a 236 forecast and 239 previous. Weirdly enough, jobless claims, if you're in the mortgage business, you're looking for this number to increase. You're looking for the economy to slow. And so although jobless claims, 3,000 difference is really not material, we also saw the GDP revision come in exactly as forecasted at 1.4% for Q1. And then we saw durable goods orders come in stronger than expected at a plus 0.1, and it was forecasted to be at a negative 0.1. And last month was revised down to 0.2 from 0.7. So that kind of blocked itself out, kind of negated each. Pending existing home sales came in down a 2.1% versus a forecasted plus 1%. So each of these, as you see, the green should be positive for interest rates, meaning lower interest rates. Yellow should tell you that it's kind of a non-event relative to interest rates. And then this morning, PCE, personal consumption expenditures, which is a Fed favorite, for May, came in at a 0.1%, exactly on top of the forecasted 0.1%. Last month, it was at 0.2, so it's favorable to last month. And the year-over-year number came in at 2.6% actual versus the 2.6% forecast and 2.8% previously. Now, interestingly enough, this morning when this number hit, we saw an improvement on the 10-year. We saw an improvement in rates. That improvement has since reversed itself, and the market is looking at other technical factors that are part of this report, and actually bonds have sold off here a little bit this morning. What does all that mean? I'll get to that here in just a second, but in short, we're not going to have a straight line to lower interest rates anytime soon. That's kind of really the takeaway here. This coming week, on Monday, we'll see the S&P U.S. Manufacturing PMI Index released on Monday. On Tuesday, there's a couple of data points coming out, but the most important one, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is going to give a speech in Europe. His comments, I would expect to move the market. On Wednesday, we're going to see the ADP employment, which is an index tracking private jobs, doesn't include government jobs or state jobs, will come out. The initial jobless claims report will come out. The S&P services PMI index will come out on Wednesday as well. And that's a big one because it also tracks things like mortgage rates and other kinds of pieces coming out. Thursday, obviously, is July 4th. It's a holiday. There's no data. But the big Monte on Friday will be the June jobs report, the unemployment and employment report. So job creation, as well as jobless or unemployment data will come out, as well as earnings, hourly earnings will come out on Friday as well. That's going to be kind of the full Monte report that the market will look at. And if we see improvement, if we see lower job creation or an increase in unemployment, that'll be positive for rates on a go-forward basis. So what should you be telling, what are the takeaways out of this? While inflation appears to be moderating, and as a result, rates should begin to float down into Q3 and Q4, again, we're not going to see this in a straight line. All data this past week was either positive for lower rates or really not material. PCE this morning, Fed's favorite gauge, showed improvement. The jobs report next Friday and the Powell speech on Tuesday will really be significant. The Bank of America chief economist came out with an article this morning that predicted that the locked-in housing market that we're all suffering through, where sellers are unwilling to sell their house, to list their house for sale, is likely going to remain through 2025 and will not likely free up until 2026. So said differently, we probably still have at least a year, if not a year and a half, of this struggle of getting sellers to bring their houses onto market and improve the inventory for sale. And while we maintain fairly robust demand, house prices will likely still remain high, and that is driving a lot of the inflation data. If you look at the PCE data right below this, while the price index, the 3-month annualized number, is at 2.4% inflation, and core PCE is at 2.7. If you took the housing component out, that inflation number would be down to 2.2%, which would be almost in line with what the Fed is looking for. So house prices, mortgage rates, when the Fed calculates inflation, they assume a customer is getting a new mortgage every month. So they look at the current interest rates, they look at the current home prices, and as you all know, those two numbers are very challenging today. So the market is looking a little worse today due to some technical trading. And it's my view that rates will not be lower in a straight line. You're going to get these bounces from time to time, depending on how the market perceives data. And I would just say in general, playing the float and lock later game will be dangerous for your pipelines. It's not, you're going to see a lot of commentary come out for lower interest rates. I'm just not convinced that that's going to happen in a straight line. This chart, which will be in the deck that we send out to you, gives you a little sense of what's gone on over the last couple of years. Obviously, the core CPI, the Consumer Price Index, really rocketed up into late 21 and early 22, and it's been on a fairly significant downward trajectory since then. But as you can see in the individual months along the way, we're seeing the rates kind of bounce all over the place. And that's what's causing this choppiness in the market today. Some additional data to understand. Existing home sales continue to be challenged. We're sitting at about the 4 million home sales per year level. If you look back to 21 and 22, that was up in the almost 7 million home sales with these, the super low interest rates. This number of 4 million, I'll give you my 2 cents. I think that the 4 million number will likely be challenged this year. The current estimate is 4.11 million, which would be roughly equal to what we saw last year. If rates don't materially improve over the second half of this year, which I do not expect, I think we'll see somewhat downward rates, but not enough to materially move the market. This 4 million number will continue for some time, and I think we're going to be challenged to make the 4 million number. That 4.11 million number, this chart that you'll get in the deck today as well, gives you a little sense by the geographic territory from the West, the South, the Midwest, and the Northeast in terms of what is comprising that number. And you can see that not all the regions are the same. The Northeast is trending down. The Midwest is trending up. The South is actually trending down, led to some degree by Florida. And the West is trending down as well, which is what's keeping kind of the lid on this 4 million number. Housing starts, you can see the blue line in the middle. This is a little chart that shows you the last 8 years. And for those of you who do a lot of builder business or new construction business, this is an important number for you. This month will reflect a downturn. So this chart is only through April. If you look at May and likely June, housing starts are beginning to trend down, where the builders are having less confidence in terms of lower interest rates. So they're slowing down inventory. That's while that'll reduce the number of sales, the other concern that creates is that when we have less inventory, house prices remain high and continues to contribute to an inflationary number. This is a challenging chart. This gap, this charts the house price index on the purple line, the top line, versus hourly earnings for production and non-supervisory employees. So think of that as blue collar employees. And you see an immense widening gap where house prices are trending up much faster than hourly earnings are trending up for hourly workers. And that's creating an immense affordability gap in the marketplace. The MBA just released an updated fixed rate conforming conventional forecast for the next 8 quarters. And you can see in Q2 where we are today, we're at the end of Q2 24, 6.9%. Rates are actually marginally above that currently based on this morning's activity in the market. And while you can see in this chart over the next 8 quarters a downward trend of almost 100 basis points, it has been my view for quite some time that until we get down into the mid fives, we're not going to really correct in the marketplace. Although lower rates will always be appreciated, and we'll take what we can get. And this chart gives you a little sense of the slow trajectory over the balance of 24 and 25. Last but not least, most of you on the call are probably not responsible for a P&L or the financial activity within your organization, but this is an MBA fully loaded expense versus productivity sense of what it costs to produce a mortgage today in a mortgage company. And as you can see from 21 and 20, the cost of producing a mortgage is up materially. Part of it is the sales cost. As loan sizes have increased dramatically, commission dollars have increased along with them. But because of lower productivity and lower, you can see the lines in this chart, the dotted lines show dramatically reduced productivity in virtually every function within the mortgage space. And as a result, the costs have gone through the roof. So today, in 2023, it was $15,000 to produce a loan versus $13,500 last year in 2022. And this year, the first quarter of this year, that number has actually increased. So it gives you a little sense of what's going on in the market. And I can tell you from the rest of my business, M&A, mergers and acquisitions are increasing dramatically. I have a call this afternoon with another investment banking company with a couple of companies for sale. That's going to continue for some time here going forward. Before I introduce Jeff, or actually, let me do that. Let me introduce Jeff Walton now, and then we'll take questions as Jeff finishes his portion. In summary today, rates continue to be challenged out there in the marketplace. And it has been my view over the last couple of years that companies like Ingenious, that Jeff is the CEO of, have new tools that were not in existence just 4 or 5 years ago in the marketplace that can help salespeople and sales organizations do a much better job in targeting the right realtors, agents, and opportunities within the market, whether it's salespeople looking to call on the right salespeople. I have a simple view that I was given by a mentor of mine 40 years ago when I started in this business. You can call on people who are in real estate, or you can call on people who sell real estate. Jeff and his team and his tools and companies like him can give you the tools to be able to identify people who actually are selling real estate versus people who are in real estate. And as a result, some of Jeff's tools, I see companies making these tools available to their salespeople, and then the salespeople aren't using them. So I don't understand that. So first, let me introduce Jeff Walton, who has over 35 years experience. Just as a side note, Jeff and I actually worked together, running divisions and regions in a time long ago. I've been a friend and an admirer of Jeff's for a long time. He did a phenomenal job of putting Total Expert on the market. He's now the CEO of Ingenious. I know they actually still work together. Those two companies work together a lot. So let me introduce Jeff Walton up to the group. And Jeff, good morning and welcome for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast.
Yes, exactly. It's we've got folks from kind of all over the place here. And hold on one second, Jeff. I'm just pulling something up here really quickly.
No worries. Excuse me.
Bear with me. So Jeff, why don't you just start by explaining a little bit of what and who Ingenious is, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ingenious is a data as a service platform with very deep data resources, over 47 million lines of data. I'll narrow it down somewhat today of what's of interest to this group in LO recruiting and broker prospecting, and probably even more realtor relationships. And those are the two primary focus areas that I would like to speak about today. And to give you an idea of what our data does is we allow you on the recruiting side to go into a particular market, and you go in that market and then you use dynamic filtering that we have to match the strengths of your company with the strengths of LOs that you're looking for in that marketplace. Or if you're a wholesale company and prospecting for brokers that match the strength of your company and your offerings. So a good example of that for recruiting would be going into a particular market and saying, okay, I want individuals that produce volume between 12 million and 60 million. I'm not looking for that culture killer 100 and whatever million producer. That's our sweet spot, whatever that may be. I want somebody that does at least X% of purchase business in this market. It might be 90, but on an average market, maybe it's 60% purchase. And by product, I want somebody that is more profitable. So I want them doing at least 20% government, FHA or VA, or both. You can filter for either. And I want somebody, because I'm an IB, I don't have a good jumbo offering, less than 5% jumbo. I can also look for LOs that are banker, credit union, independent mortgage banker, combination thereof. And I can look at time frame going all the way back to January of 2019, so that I can see a historic perspective for the last 5 years. Apply those filters, and up by volume comes those people that best match the strengths of your company and who you're looking for in that marketplace, which is going to do two things for you. It's going to make it easier for you to recruit them because you match strengths, and it's going to be better to retain them because you match strengths. So that's very important. Then on the realtor relationship side, you can go into a market and you can look at what all the realtors in your market are doing. And you can look at it by what company they're funding their loans with for their customers, what product they're using, and what LO they're using in that particular marketplace. So it creates transparency. You can also go into that market and say, I want to see all of the buy-side realtors in the market and what volume they do and who they're doing that business with. And that's the basics of our program as it relates to this group.
Thanks, Jeff. That's great. Look, just for the audience too, I think, as you think about utilizing data sets like this, Jeff mentioned that if you're an originator, you can see buy-side agents, sell-side agents, you can see who they're doing business with. To me, there's a second step to that as well, Jeff, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit if you see clients doing this. If I was an originator today and I could see that data, and I know that this agent, who's a high-performing agent, is working with some of my competitors, my ability to then shop my competitor, understand their products, their pricing, and then craft my pitch back to that individual agent so that I now know not only who they're doing business with, what type of loans they're doing with them, what type of average sales price they have. You could discern whether they're heavy government or jumbo or conventional, and tailor my pitch back to that individual agent. Can you speak to that a little bit on kind of how you see clients today utilizing that data successfully to improve their volume?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Brian. It's being able to have that insight and transparency. So one of the things that we also have people do as best practice is look at your realtors you're doing business with.
Correct.
Are they cheating on you?
Right, exactly. Are they dating?
Probably.
Are they dating others?
Are they dating others? But at least let's say you go in and you find out they're sending a certain type of loan to somebody else. that you can obviously do, or whatever it is. But the point being is you have the transparency and knowledge to sit down and have an intelligent conversation with your realtor about that, right? Instead of not knowing, or if you're not getting business all of a sudden, why? It just creates that transparency. But then it also shows you going into a marketplace. If I'm a sales leader, and they're cutting out sales leaders, they're compressing and flattening organizations. If I want to create value, I'm going to dive into a marketplace. I'm going to look at what all the realtors are doing, who they're doing it with, who my loan officers are doing business with, and I'm going to find opportunities for them and serve it up to them so that I do the footwork for them because they're out trying to produce, right? I'm doing the legwork. There's so much value you can create in being a manager and coach for your loan officers by having this data, unquestionable.
Yeah.
And I'd also look at realtors and say, okay, this realtor is doing X amount of volume, but it's all with one, maybe two people. That's a strong relationship. And I'd look at it and say, okay, this realtors did 15 deals last year, 15 or 20 deals, and it was kind of scattered. And they're a buy-side realtor. I'm like, okay, I can create maybe loyalty. There's an opportunity for me, right? Because you have the knowledge in the marketplace that Brian, you and I did not have by some measure when we originated loans. But as the market starts to change also, and you have with what commissions are going to happen, who's going to be the one that's going to be referring? Is it going to be more the listing agent? Now you can look at listing agents and see if there's a trend, if they're doing referrals. If you see on transactions going on in the marketplace, are they the ones sending it versus the buy side? So there's a lot to look at there.
Yeah, look, Jeff, so a couple of pieces, and I'm going to recite this data a little bit later in the call as well, but just for everybody on the call, in 2023, the top 1.5% of agents accounted for 68% of all sales in America. The top 2% accounted for 74% of all sales, and the top 10% accounted for almost 89% of all sales in the United States. In round numbers, depending on whose data you look at, there's about 1.5 million agents, active agents in the United States. That 10% number, the top 10%, is about 150,000 agents that are driving almost 90%. It's not 80-20, it's a 90-10 game. And if you find yourself calling on the other, 90% who are accounting for 10 or 11% of all sales, you're calling on the wrong folks. And I think, Jeff, I guess that, you and I didn't, because I don't like to over prep for these kind of things. One of the issues that I have is individual originators, in my opinion, need to treat themselves as if they're the CEO of their own company, right? The CEO of their own business, and do that type of analytic. Are my agents cheating with others? Meaning, I don't mean the word cheat. Are they working with others on certain products where you think you have a great share, but you may not? Secondly, if you're a sales leader, to be honest, if I was a sales leader today, I would have an analyst who does nothing but look at this data against my sales force and wanting to understand, what's going on in that process. And are my salespeople becoming complacent with their agents, not recognizing new agents who are making immense strides in the marketplace, and we've become a little complacent with thinking we have the share that we should have? Can you speak to that at all? I know you touched on it briefly.
Yeah, I think it goes back again to knowing your marketplace and having those insights, doing your homework, studying the numbers. We don't provide this data to be, weaponized for recruiting people and stealing business. This is like transparency is what we're trying to create in the marketplace, so you can see what's going on, so that you can better serve your company, yourself, your clients. When a stock is traded on the New York Stock Exchange, it's completely transparent. You see all the data, you see the historical data, you see you see it all. That's what we're trying to create here, so that the people that put the work in get the business. And what you're seeing as a trend is that the top producing loan officers are growing their market share and they're taking it from the lower 60%. And that trend is continuing over time where the top are continuing to grow. The reason they're growing is that they are using technology and they are using data in order to increase their market share through intelligence. And it's all done through hard work. We can serve up the data. You've got to look at it. You've got to see what it says so that you can take advantage of it in your marketplace. And Brian brings up a dynamic here, a map showing, the top 20% are doing 70% of the business. And the top 40%, are doing, close to that 90 number, right?
Exactly.
And so, which is very, very telling in terms of that as well.
Jeff, the one thing I think, it's always been my view that people have a hard time embracing new ideas if they can't visualize what we're talking about and how granular your data can be within Ingenious. And look, let me just say this, Jeff has competitors in the marketplace. There's a lot of good companies out there. It's my intent in the future to maybe bring some of those companies in as well. They may have a slightly different piece. But here's what I know. I've been working with Jeff for a long time, and I've been working with Ingenious some through this process as well. And can you give us a sense, Jeff, of just exactly how granular the data on agents or originators or other folks can be in a marketplace, and how you can narrow this in geographically into the communities that folks are working in?
Yeah, so I mean, our data does get very granular, and one of the reasons our data is more accurate and more granular in the marketplace compared to competitors is that D data is very messy. MLS data can be very messy from the MLSs and the people that aggregate that data. And so we found that we have to use 3 different sources of D data, 3 different sources of MLS data, and then we use, of course, HMDA data, NMLS, census data, and we blend and sequence that in a patent pending process that makes it that much more accurate. And then we also have the contact information for realtors and loan officers in our database. And then, by the way, we let you market at scale by letting you integrate it into your CRM or your company's CRM. But you're going to get all the things we talked about in those dynamic filters that are going to give you all the details. Now, we have a product called LoanView Connect that is loan level data where we use it for a couple different purposes. One is that you can rebuild your database going back to January of 19 and rehydrate it through our system, where you don't have to take your database with you if you go to a different company. You don't have to risk lawsuits, and it's going to have the date it closed. It's going to have the name of buyer 1, buyer 2, the address. It's going to have the product. It's going to have the title company. It's going to have all those things that are germane to you marketing to your clients, which is very, very important, obviously. But it's also the accuracy of the data. If you're off by 20 or 30% and you get to a loan level, you're just not going to be able to transfer that. And you're not going to be able to be accurate when you are hiring or when you are prospecting for realtors.
Jeff, if I could just add in, look, for the folks who are listening to this, that evolution right there, that product that Jeff's talking about, the ability to rehydrate your database, if for whatever kind, if you've joined a new company, right? There are lawsuits flying all over the place where people are suing each other in the mortgage business because of originators taking proprietary data, customer lists, those kinds of things, all of which is very dangerous. When you've been paid a commission, unless you have a contract that says otherwise, when you've been paid a commission on a loan that closes, in general, the company owns that data. They own that customer. They own that lead. Your ability to rehydrate and or go back and work on rebuilding or supplementing whatever CRM or database you have today, these guys can help you do that at an immensely granular level. And that's really a kind of a new evolution for you, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention. Had a client call us and stuff and say, we just, we took a number of loan officers from another company and we recruited them and a couple of those people brought their databases. We're being sued. We're spending, tens of thousands of dollars on attorneys, which nobody likes to do. Can you recreate a database? And we were like, yeah, we think so. We just haven't gotten to it. We're busy developing other things and doing our business. But we looked at it. We looked at the legality of it. We consulted with our attorneys. It's public data. And in particular, what's important is that our data is accurate enough that you can do a good job of rebuilding that data. If it's not accurate, it's not worth nearly as much, right? But
Right.
so we created that recently for that purpose.
Jeff, I've got another slide up from you as well, which shows kind of the drop in the number of originators. It's been my view that for true pros in our business who are focused on all of the details, using data, continuing to grow their business, even in a difficult market, the advantage over the next couple of years is that you're going to have a shrinking number of people feeding from the mortgage trough. And this data that I have this slide that I have up kind of demonstrates that, where we're down about 70,000 originators who've done at least one loan. I think this is a look at each of the years. Can you speak to this just a little bit? And by the way, for folks who are seeing this on your screen, each of Jeff's slides, and there'll be a slide later that has his QR code as well, that if you want to go up and get more information from Ingenious, you can just click on this QR code and it'll take you right to Ingenious as well. But Jeff, could you speak to the slide just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are loan officers that did at least one loan, and this is the average on a yearly basis. To be a little more granular, it really peaked in numbers at about 178,000 in March of 2021,
Right.
and now you see that's pretty accurate there. January of 2024, that was really only 1 month's data and stuff. It's down to 93,000, so you're off 43% or so. It's a big decrease in terms of that. Our latest data shows it's staying pretty steady though, which is the good news. If you're you're out there originating loans, you're hopefully doing enough that you're making a living at it. A number of these people didn't, but you can also see in January 2020 we're below where we were at in 2019, right?
Correct.
And so that tells you that we're very low. It's probably we only went back these 5 years, but I can imagine it's a long time since it's been at these levels, right? And then Brian, you brought up another slide. We have the ability to run an interest rate band against our data, and the number of loans that are above 6.5% out there in the marketplace is 4.1 million, which is significant, right? That's a year.
Jeff, when I saw this slide, I to be honest, I try to pay attention to this stuff as part of what I do as an advisor. And that number shocked me that there's 4 million loans out there still above 6.5.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at it though, over the last couple of years, loans we've been making are above 6.5.
That's
right?
true. Good point. That's a good point, right?
Yeah, so we're
repopulating this
that's why. Yeah, that's why. If you look at it historically, you're going, where have these people been during the downturn?
No, they weren't. They're new.
Yeah, they're new. Yeah, exactly. We've been creating inventory, if you can look at it that way. But you're just not, you're not terribly far off of some of these people in terms of rates dropping to be able to do something with these folks.
Exactly.
On a streamlined basis. And then if you look at above 7%, you got 1,670,000. That's significant, right? The rates don't have to move much where you can have an opportunity to, for some type of a normal refi versus purchase. Nobody wants to drive all their business through refis, but it wouldn't hurt companies or individual LOs if some of that came back. And that's why it's important to keep your customers and market to those customers and stay in touch.
No doubt.
Retention.
Maria Elena, I'm going to ask if there, I don't know if there are questions or comments. Well, Jeff is still on. Jeff, I'll ask you one more question, and then Maria Elena, take a look and see if anybody has any questions for Jeff or anything that we've covered so far. But Jeff, is there a question that I haven't asked you that you think would be something you'd want to share with the group that as you roam around in all of these companies that you're supplying data and trying to help them with their strategies, is there something that we haven't covered that you'd want to share with the group that you think would be beneficial to sales or sales leaders out there?
Yeah. So speaking of, loan level data, we have loan level data on every single loan out there that's been recorded in the United States. You can see we know which loans are going to be in the money at what time. We don't know, but the same type of dynamic filtering that we do, we can get a list of FHA loans in a particular market that are above 7 or 7.5% and very granular, and then match and append that in a partnership we have with TransUnion, so you can get the contact data for those individuals and load all this data into a CRM, and you can start marketing for refinances when rates drop. We have all that data, and we're selling it today, and we get these, interesting requests like only VA loans with the original loan to value of 90% loan to value in this particular county, right? And some of these call centers are, because we can get so specific with our data, they're honing in on what they know they can refinance even in this market. So it's been quite fascinating in terms of that. And there's a pretty strong demand coming for this data as well.
Yeah, let me make one really strong pitch to everybody on this call. Jeff mentioned, staying close to your customers, staying in your database, your CRM, whatever you may use to maintain connection with the customers. Stratmore, the consulting organization, Garth Graham released an article yesterday, or a kind of a white paper talking about this. And I think one of the things we want to be really careful of is don't fall asleep on your customers. Don't assume that those customers are your customers in the future. To Jeff's point, there's a lot of companies out there, emerging organizations, who are using very granular data to identify these customers who may have been your customer in the past, who will come at this with a materially lower interest rate because they've structured in a call center structure with much lower compensation, those kinds of things. Your need to stay in touch with your customer base on a go-forward basis and add value, even when they're not in the market, is critical to maintaining that opportunity if and when and as rates begin to improve in the future. You shouldn't assume that the 7.5% mortgage you made for somebody in the future is going to be your opportunity, because there's a ton of companies rather, that are already engaging with that customer looking for that same opportunity. Maria Elena, do we have any questions that are in either chat or in the Q&A or raised hands for Jeff before we let Jeff go?
There is a question here, Brian. Thank you. So the question reads, in terms of using data on a daily basis, what are some best practices, Jeff, that you would recommend for using your data?
Yeah, so I think that we talked about that, and we gave some definite examples. And so I don't know when that question came in exactly, but I think we mentioned of knowing your marketplace, right? And this data refreshes monthly. That's probably something that we should have said, but it refreshes monthly, so you're going to get that update on a monthly basis. And then you can save your view that you built, all those dynamic filters. So once a month, boom, push a button and it tells you everything that you're looking for and that you have set up previous to that, so that you can quickly analyze what has happened in the marketplace in the last 30 days. So that recommendation is stay on top of what's going on in your marketplace and who's doing what, who's emerging, and go after those people that are doing business.
Yeah.
I remember when I was low, I used to go after these people like, why is this guy not sending me business? Finally, I found out he's not doing any business.
No, that's exactly right. Look, and if you take yourself out of the mortgage and real estate space, just think about this. Do you think, when you're searching on your phone because you're looking to buy something, then all of a sudden ads start showing up on your phone for that very product? That is some very smart sales and marketing organization using algorithmic approaches to data to identify opportunities and move against that opportunity. I would just say this, folks, if you've been in this business for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, whatever, and your approach to the business is, I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done, I think you're missing the point. Data can improve your accuracy and your success and pull-through rates dramatically, but only if you work it, update it, and have a way to get your arms around it so that you can understand the implication to your business. Jeff, did I just articulate basically your value prop to the market, or my way up?
When can you come to work for us, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, I'd be glad to be a salesman for you. So, Maria Elena, any other questions for Jeff or for me that have piled up as we've kind of rattled through this here?
There might be a question. So I see, Mike, you have your hand raised and your line is unmuted. So if you'd like to ask your question, please go ahead.
Excellent. Good morning, Jeff. This is my query. My question is access to Ingenious at the loan officer level only available at the enterprise level? Maybe if I did the QR code, it would have answered those questions. But how would someone get access to it individually, or does it have to go through a company?
Well, currently we've been doing it enterprise. We are coming out shortly with our LO access. And so if you go on that QR code, it actually downloads a ebook on recruiting as a whole. But then somebody can reach out to you and walk you through it and let you know how to get access to our data. Great question, Mike.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any others, Maria Elena?
That's it for now. Thank you.
All right, Jeff Walton, you're more than welcome to stay. We're at the end of our call. We stay on for about an extra 30 minutes. If people have any additional questions on any topic, you're more welcome to stay, but I know you have a business to run. So if you have to go, we totally understand. And we can't thank you enough for joining us and helping people think through data strategies to improve their business on a go-forward basis. So again, thank you. And we'll go on to the kind of the rest of the call here.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So just teeing off Jeff's commentary, and this is the data that I referenced earlier on the left-hand side of this slide, specific strategies for using data to improve volume, and start with these couple of facts that I rattled off. I'm not going to repeat them. I covered some of them, but essentially my pitch is, and I work with companies on the consulting side on this all the time, if you're still calling on or working with the other 1.35 million realtors who accounted for the other 11% of sales that the top 10% of agents in the country did not get, you may want to rethink your strategy in that process. Using data to call on realtors who actually sell real estate is the key. And let me just make one last pitch on this data side. Consolidation is accelerating both in the real estate business. You're all, I'm sure, familiar with the commission lawsuits that are going on. There will be, I will guarantee you, fewer realtors going forward because of the compression in commissions that'll happen it's not going to happen overnight, by the way. It's not all of a sudden the whole world hasn't changed on the real estate side, but it will continue to evolve. Secondly, I think you're going to see buy-side realtors moving into the mortgage space to offset some of the drop in commission earnings. So they're going to get licensed, and under the dual comp rules that are now available, you're seeing more and more realtors working on both sides of the transaction through this process. So your need to assess your business, whether you're a rep, a branch manager, a regional, a divisional, a sales leader, whatever the case may be, your need to continuously assess your business, who you're calling on and why, what competition is doing business with the folks you're trying to do business with, and understanding that at a granular level is really critical, in my opinion, to your success on a go-forward basis. So we've covered a number of pieces on the right-hand side of how you should use a system like Ingenious. And again, I appreciate Jeff coming on. Just so you know, folks who join my call are not paid. They're coming on to try to help people in our business. And the ability to identify your market or markets geographically, to use the data analytics systems such as Ingenious or others to identify realtors who are doing significant numbers of sales, to identify average sales price so you can match up to your products and services and what you think you do well, identify who they're currently doing loans with. I heard Mike Query ask a question on this. Mike and I have worked together a number of times through the years, and it always blows us away. We go into a real estate firm and we talk about, who's doing all the volume, and you'll get information that almost always is inaccurate when you really get to the data in terms of what lenders are actually taking business out of those organizations. So having the facts, having the data is really critical here. Your ability to shop your competition and understand their pricing, their skills, their marketing to gain a competitive analysis of your competitors, and the ability to identify specific approaches to improving the realtor's sales utilizing your products and abilities, and then creating a compelling marketing approach to those realtors and other opportunities within the marketplace, I believe remains significantly important to growing your business and being a consolidator. Consolidation is not only happening in the real estate side, it's happening in the mortgage side, that the top producers are gaining share. And this is one of the ways that they are doing that. So last week, for those of you who were on the call, you'll know that one of my favorite metaphors is T-Rex, who dominated the world for 300 million years and then went extinct. And one of the reasons T-Rex went extinct, and I use this little metaphor, this little cartoon to kind of remind people, is T-Rex was not great at evolution. Everything around him and the environment was changing, and T-Rex couldn't evolve and is now a tar pit. And so one of the things I wanted to share and will share each week going forward is some tips for self-improvement and or 12 rare traits in every high performer. By the way, this isn't just about the mortgage business. These are high performers in any sales or company out there. One, they get shit done. So that's about as straight as I can be. Self-awareness. Are they completely aware of their strengths and weaknesses? Are you doing enough to analyze your business? They have ruthless grit. I've never met a top producer yet who wasn't maniacal about the business, who wants to grow, who constantly is looking for new sources of business, new referral opportunities, who shows empathy, treats everyone with respect and empathy no matter what. Jeff touched on it. Some of the biggest producers in the business are culture killers, and you got to be a little careful adding them to your business. Do they show empathy for those around them? They don't complain. They just go and get it done. They're strong communicators. They're great at simplifying complex topics. It is what we do in the mortgage business. When we sit with a client or a customer, we're taking complex concepts and simplifying them for the customer's ability to understand what we're doing going forward. They control their emotions. Their EQ scores are off the charts strong. They speak up. They don't just accept things as they are. They manage their time well, and they enjoy being wrong. And what do I mean by that? They embrace different viewpoints and ideas with genuine interest. They look to evolve. They look to improve their skills. And I want to thank Chris Donnelly, who puts this out in a newsletter. I'm using some of his materials, so I wanted to give him a shout out on that piece. If you're not clear on your own emotional intelligence score, I've given you also from Chris an EQ cheat sheet, a way to assess your emotional intelligence and your emotional EQ, because it's really critical. These are very difficult times in our business, and your ability to manage your emotions and stay focused on the important aspects of our business, in my opinion, will be critical to your success going forward. So down on the bottom right-hand side, there's a couple of books to help improve your EQ. All these will be in the deck that we send out at the end of this call. There's some 5 TED Talks that you can watch to help improve your EQ. There's some very specific strategies in the middle, and the pros to having a high EQ and how it'll evolve in your business. This kind of information we'll include every week as we go forward. And again, this is available to you up in our community site on an ongoing basis as well. So we have some future speakers. We covered some of these last week. Jeff Walton's name was on this. By the way, Jeff will be back. I expect to have folks like Jeff or Dave Savage who participated last week. And let me just speak to something about last week. For those of you who were on the call last week, everything went fabulous. We got a lot of very positive commentary. We made one technical mistake. We were not able to record last week's call. We have this week's call, and every week going forward will be up in the community site for re-review. We're using a new piece of technology, and the technology worked fabulously well. except for the fact we realized late in the call that it wasn't being recorded. So we apologize for that error. It was our first call. We won't make that error again. So this call will be recorded. People will be able to go back to it, re-listen to it, re-see the slides, combine it, share it. So on an ongoing basis. We expect to have folks like Jeff, Dave, and others as recurring folks. I expect sometime in July we'll have Ivy Zellman on for a kind of a full-blown view of what's going on in the housing market. She's probably the most significant housing analyst on Wall Street that has a very broad view into both home builders and the real estate business in general. And we'll have some top producers like Champ Bonasian, Tiffany Rose, and others that'll be joining us here as we go forward. If you're looking for additional information on the weekly roadmap, you can scan this QR code. If you're looking for additional information on Ingenious, again, these will be in the deck as we go forward. And let me just we're right up against the top of the hour. Maria Elena, do we have any questions or hand raising in any of the boxes as we stand here at this point on anything that I've covered today or anything that Jeff may have covered that we can speak to?
Brian, I don't see any questions at this time. Make sure you're typing them into the Q&A section and or the chat, and we'll make sure to take those questions live.
And we still have participants, right? We didn't lose everybody.
We sure do.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, it's right at the top of the hour, and each week I'm going to stay on for as long as people want to stay on for at least a half hour, if it takes that long, to answer any questions, either on topics that we covered today, on the weekly roadmap, on the community site, or any questions you may have, or any topic that you want to raise. We'll stay on for as long as there may be questions along this process. Again, we're going to make the weekly roadmap available for free to anybody who wants to join until the 1st of August. Then it'll move to a subscription service. Some of you may be on for longer or shorter periods of that time. We're in the process, as we've launched this thing, you'll learn a lot about your technology. You'll learn a lot about prep for these calls, and we certainly are in a learning mode. One of the most important things we want from the audience is, what do you want to hear about? What are topics that you would like us to bring? Speakers that you would like us to hear from? If anything, my 41 years in the business has provided for me is I have pretty good access to virtually anybody in the industry. And we're looking to line up additional speakers, additional topics. We want this call to be about things, topics, and strategies that you want to hear about, that you want to have access to, that maybe you don't get from your current company, or you don't have access to, some other way. And to the degree your company's providing it, great. To the degree that we can supplement it, great. To the degree you don't get it, we want to provide it here as part of the weekly roadmap. So, Maria Elena, do we have any other hand raises or questions? And it's not my intent to belabor the call if there's no additional questions or issues. Anything out there?
I don't see anything right now. I did drop the URL for the weekly roadmap to learn more and or to become a member in the chat at this time. So if you want to take a look at that, copy paste it into your browser. And Brian, one more time, there are no questions or hands raised at this time.
All right, then I suggest that given that, I'm going to wait just another 10 seconds here to see if anybody raises their hand. And if they don't, then we're going to take the call down and let people move on. We'll be sending the deck out shortly after this call, and we'll include some of the commentary from Jeff as bullet points as well, and the additional data slides. And we look forward to everybody. We are, by the way, going to have a call on Friday, July 5th. I realize that many of you may be taking a 4-day holiday, but if you want to call in, if you want to listen to it via podcast, however you want to do it, there will be a call on Friday, July 5th. And we'll be announcing the speaker shortly for that call as well. Maria Elena, any other questions?
No questions, but just a suggestion for a future topic. So we'll take that. We'll take that back, and we'll make note of it. Thank you so much.
Great. All right, let's take the call down, and we appreciate it. Good luck, everybody, this week and this weekend. Look forward to talking to you again next week and on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much for participating.